Greetings, friends. I humbly welcome you all to this session I'd like to call the 52-Week Movie Challenge. When I feel the need to reconnect with my inner peace, I partake in an exercise that connects myself with the cosmic fabric of the cinematic universe. If you'd like to join me in being one with this fabric of reality, then all you need is this. Everybody's a critic. The 52-Week Movie Challenge. Throughout this practice, I become one with films I've yet to see and meditate upon their profound artistry. Throughout this exercise, I have reached enlightenment upon the creative trifecta of film criticism, awareness of the heart of a film, transcendence into a filmmaker's greater awareness, and finally, the most crucial of them all, the metaphysical construct of the movie-going experience, be it in solitude, a movie theater, or with a friend who's drunk beyond syllables. Why enjoy film with eyes of an aloof and faceless figure in the sky, when I can discover such phenomena through my own corporeal flesh and blood as a deeply personal experience? If you care to understand what would this be like, I direct you towards my previous film review. Now that your understanding of this trifecta has been properly established, it's time to meditate on the cinematic value of a story about animals. I give so much credit to directors of children's films who treat their young audiences like adults. Sure, there'll always be fluff for kids, but it feels so special that this exception with such high ambitions squeaks through the cracks.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
The Secret of NIMH is an animated dark fantasy film directed by Don Bluth that tells the story of Mrs. Brisby. She's a mother anticipating the literal move of her home, but there's a problem. Her son is diagnosed with severe pneumonia. After talking with the great owl, Mrs. Brisby must consult with a group of rats to help her out. She eventually gets caught into a conflict where the increasing reliance on technology endangers her and her own family. The Secret of NIMH is one of those films that I feel gladder over its existence than for its actual strengths. That doesn't mean The Secret of NIMH is without its strong suits. The choice of making a parent, particularly a mother, the main character in a children's film gives the journey a unique level of honesty. When it comes right down to it, the task of protecting a family member do make the stakes feel more personal. I know this has technically been done before in 101 Dalmatians, but this makes parenthood feel like it has some dramatic stakes to its story. In fact, this makes for an interesting and thematic precursor to Finding Nemo. The Secret of NIMH also dabbles into the conflicts between the rapid industrialization of science and the preservation of the natural world, and it does a decent job of not making the answers feel preachy or obvious. The film is about Mrs. Brisby rescuing her family against insurmountable odds, and it plants its feet firmly in that journey without complications. The animation is also top-notch for making the characters feel alive and with distinct personalities. The backgrounds are simply outstanding. Looking at them really reminds me of the artwork of the golden age of Disney films. They evoke so much atmosphere that they make the environments feel like characters themselves. Jerry Goldsmith's score is also phenomenal, effectively capturing the film's atmosphere that evokes awe and doom. This balance really captures what the characters are going through and effectively communicates its themes. With all that out of the way, I actually found The Secret of NIMH to be a deeply flawed film that, upon further inspection of its characterization and narrative, feels much more surface level than its premise suggests. I felt like that if there was one more rewrite to give more depth to these characters, then the execution of these ideas would feel much more poignant. I understand that The Secret of NIMH is a family film, but I found the supporting characters to be either largely forgettable or downright annoying. Most of the characters like the Great Owl, Nicodemus, and the Scientist Mouse just feel like bland archetypes. The all-wise figure, the otherwise figure, and the token scientist, even with the screen time that they have, just come off as characters limited to their archetypes rather than defined by their distinct personalities. Then you have the Dom DeLuise character, which I know he has a name, but come on. It's frickin' Dom DeLuise, and the children characters. Oh my god, I hated these characters so much, particularly the former. I'm thoroughly convinced that if The Crow were to be written out of the film, there would be no thematic purpose lost.
I'm working on a love nest for two.
So what? Why should I care? Why does he want to do so? How does that even affect the resolution of the film? In fact, he doesn't even achieve his goal. That wouldn't be so bad, except there's no sense of realization of anything. Then there are the kids. They're pretty much what 80s kids films, most of them anyway, thought what kids act like. Way too cute and innocent than most people think. They're not funny, endearing, or even that charming. Even when they do come on screen, I keep yelling in my head for these kids to shut up! What about the hero and villain characters, Mrs. Brisby and Jenner? While I do think she's a likable enough of a character, her arc isn't really that interesting. I understand Mrs. Brisby ideally is more of a role model than a transformative character, but even when she does all the things out of bravery and kindness, it doesn't really expand anything upon her character. What is so special about her relationship with her son? What exactly outside family stability is she preserving? There are physical stakes, but what about the emotional stakes? This is a question that could easily be fleshed out, but ignoring this makes Mrs. Brisby feel ordinary, but quite hard with whom to relate. The villain in the film is also a wasted opportunity. Given some heady themes at play, those being the metaphysical evolution of science and the preservation of nature, Jenner could really have been a character who could easily come off as a noble and inspiring genius, but ultimately succumb to his own ambitions and endanger everyone around him. He instead feels like a mustache-twirling villain without an ounce of humanity whatsoever. Speaking of themes, that's also something I want to discuss. Even if The Secret of NIMH ultimately boils down to a clash between the natural world and scientific progress, the characters who represent these ideas don't strongly connect. If it sounds like I'm expecting more philosophy and deeper dichotomy out of a children's film, then you bet I am. If I can't connect with the characters beyond surface level appeal, why should I even care about the deeper meaning of Secret of NIMH? In fact, too many other children's animated films and even TV shows nowadays nail those more complex balances. Take seasons 3 and 4 of Legend of Korra, for instance. You have Korra, a force for balance, going up against villains of anarchy and fascism respectively. Is it obvious what the heroes and villains represent? Yes, but their motives make their characters and the commentaries on these themes unique and three-dimensional. But if comparing The Secret of NIMH to a TV series feels unfair, then how about with either Toy Stories 2, 3, or even 4? All the villains in those films represent a certain degree of separation anxiety from a child that, as a character, Woody obviously stands against. It's through his compassion and growth through change, however, that expand and define these ideas in a thoughtful, engaging, and identifiable way. On top of that, the source of malice these villains commit derive from a sympathetic and emotional reaction from the trauma from abandonment. This makes the hero-villain dynamic give a perfectly concrete examination of friendship, loss, moving on, and embracing personal and physical change. See from where I argue, if The Secret of NIMH had lent much greater depth on selfless bravery and paramount ambitions to Mrs. Brisby and Jenner respectively, then their arcs would have served better justice to the film's ambitious themes. As it is, the film feels way too timid and unsure of itself to thoroughly tackle them. I also think I'm being completely fair by comparing children's properties from different decades. Just because a certain film from the past is considered a classic, that doesn't make it flawless or even beyond compared to films of similar genres and media that came after such. I can think of several examples where The Secret of NIMH is surpassed by other films in quality. Because of that, I consider The Secret of NIMH an impressive but ultimately apparent product of its time. So that was much more in depth than I expected. In fact, I actually watched the film twice for this review. After my first viewing, I admired a lot for what it accomplished, but I have far too many misgivings that kept me at arm's length with the film's heart. Upon second viewing, however, I greater understood those reservations. Overall, I find The Secret of NIMH to be just okay. It's a commendably ambitious film centering on a likable, if milquetoast central character told through exquisite visuals and memorable animation. While I also give the film further credit for being one of the few early animated children's films at the time to treat its younger audience like adults, its ambitions ultimately feel forsaken by insufferable supporting characters, an unfulfilling hero-villain dichotomy, and themes that feel like they've been touched upon rather than fully explored. I'm glad it has its fans, but I could neither get emotionally nor intellectually attached to it. On a scale of 1 to 10, The Secret of NIMH is definitely a mousy adventure. So what's your take on The Secret of NIMH? Have you seen it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, what's your favorite dark fantasy film? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you'll know when I post my future videos. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at FilmGeekDave. That's all for today, and I'll see you next time when I review a 90s film.
What the hell does this have to do with anything? Tell me what's happening!